A man doesn't miss you just because you stopped texting. He doesn't miss you just because you walked away. A man misses you like crazy when he finally discovers what your presence really meant. He realizes that no one else brings the same peace you did. You didn't fill space, you created space. You made room for his emotions, his silence, his dreams, and his flaws. Not by trying to fix him, but simply by being real. That kind of presence doesn't leave quietly. It leaves a void. He starts to understand that you are never chasing him, you were choosing him, and that changed everything. There's something powerful about a woman who knows her worth, who shows up fully without losing herself. In the process, she doesn't beg to be seen. She makes being seen feel like a privilege. And when she's gone, that privilege feels like a luxury that slipped through his fingers at first. Might think you're just another woman who moved on. But over time, he starts noticing that the world doesn't treat him the way you did, the way you listened when he had nothing to say, the way you noticed the things he didn't say out loud, the way your presence didn't demand attention. It deserved it. Remembers how emotionally safe he felt with you, how your calm wasn't fake, how your boundaries weren't walls. They were bridges to deeper connection, to truth, to respect. You weren't perfect, but you were real, and real isn't replaceable. And here's what stings the most. You didn't leave with chaos. You didn't explore. You didn't try to make him hurt. You left with clarity. You walked away with your dignity intact. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself more. That's when it hits him, when the noise fades, when the excitement of something new wears off. That's when the silence stops talking. That's when the memories show up uninvited. That's when he realizes he wasn't just missing you, he was missing the version of himself that only existed when he was with you. And by then he understands the truth. A woman like you doesn't get replaced. She gets remembered over and over again in quiet moments, in loud regrets. And he misses you not just like crazy, but like he finally gets it when a woman leaves, especially one who brought depth, intention, and emotional intelligence into a man's life. There comes a moment, often delayed, when he begins to realize something he didn't fully grasp when she was there. Presence cannot be replaced with convenience. At first, he tries to distract himself. Maybe he fills his time with casual conversations, temporary connections, or mindless scrolling. It feels easier than sitting in the discomfort of what he's lost. Convenience becomes his comfort zone. It's accessible, it's immediate, and doesn't ask much of him. But slowly that surface level ease begins to wear thin, because no matter how many people he talks to or how many new faces come and go, the emotional substance just isn't there. The feeling of being truly understood, deeply seen and held without needing to prove anything, that doesn't come often. And it certainly doesn't come with convenience. He starts to recognize that what he's chasing now is just noise, background noise, to drown out the silence you left behind. But it's in that silence that truth begins to echo. And the truth is, you weren't just physically present in his life. You were emotionally and spiritually there. You didn't show up half-hearted. You gave with your eyes, your words, your time, your patience. You gave him space to be himself without judgment. You challenged him, yes, but you also championed him. That's something convenience offers. That's what presence does. See, presence is intentional. It's a decision, not a default. You chose him every time you listened without interrupting, every time you made space for his confusion. Instead of demanding clarity, every time you stood by him without shrinking yourself. He didn't fully see it then because he mistook your quiet strength for simplicity. But now in your absence, he realizes it was rare. It was layered. It was meaningful. He may try to find pieces of you and other people, bits of your humor, your kindness, your resilience, but no matter how close someone gets, they aren't you. They weren't built from the same story. They don't love from the same place. And slowly the novelty of newness fades, and he starts to long for familiarity, not the kind that comes from repetition, but the kind that comes from real connection, the kind that only shows up when someone gets you on a soul level. For that was you, and now that's gone. Convenience doesn't stay up late to hear about his fears. Convenience doesn't hold him accountable to his own potential. It might offer a quick fix, a momentary high, or even temporary companionship, but it doesn't leave an imprint. You did. He begins to understand that your absence didn't just take away a relationship. It took away a mirror. You reflected back to him a version of himself he didn't know existed, stronger, softer, more honest. And now without you, that reflection is gone. And for the first time, he's not just missing you. He's missing the man he was when you stood beside him. That's when it hits him. He didn't lose something convenient. He lost something real. He didn't misplace a routine. He let go of a connection, and in trying to replace your presence with convenience, he comes face to face with the truth. The two are not even in the same universe. Presence doesn't knock twice, and when a man finally sees the difference, It's not just regret. He feels it's a longing that lives in the quiet, in the stillness, in the moments he can't explain, because the kind of woman who shows up with heart and soul can't remember there's a quiet strength in a woman who never chased a man, but instead chose him not because she needed validation, not because she feared being alone, but because she saw something real and she decided to invest in it. That kind of energy is different. It's not desperate. It's grounded. It says, I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be. And that difference might go unnoticed at first, but not forever, when a man finally realizes that you weren't chasing him, that you were choosing him. It hits differently. He starts to look back at every moment. You showed up not out of obligation, but out of desire. Weren't trying to win him over. You were simply making space for a real connection. You weren't looking to be rescued, and you didn't need to prove your worth. You already knew your value. You just hoped he would see it too. There's something rare about a woman who chooses with clarity. She doesn't play games. She doesn't manipulate to be loved. She shows up as she is, fully present, fully engaged, and emotionally available, but only for as long as she feels respected and seen. That kind of love is powerful. It's not loud or chaotic. It's calm, intentional, deeply rooted in self-awareness. And once a man realizes he was chosen not because she was afraid to lose him, but because she believed in the potential of them, he begins to understand what he truly had in a world where so many people are busy chasing the next thrill, the next distraction, or the next ego boost. A woman who chooses quietly and consistently is a rarity. She doesn't need attention to feel alive. She doesn't need to post every moment or chase every call. She's not afraid of space, silence, or solitude. She knows that chasing never builds anything real. It only builds illusions, and she refuses to live in illusions. So when she finally walks away, not with bitterness, not with drama, but with dignity, says everything, because she didn't leave, because she stopped caring. She left because she finally accepted that her choosing wasn't being met with the same intention. And choosing who doesn't choose you back is not love. It's self-abandonment. She knew better than to stay where she wasn't fully seen. That's the moment he starts to feel the shift, not immediately, but eventually. Maybe it hits him when he tries to recreate the connection with someone else, and it falls flat. Maybe it's when he finds himself surrounded by attention, but still feels empty. Or maybe it's in the quiet, when the world slows down and he remembers the way she used to look at him, with belief, with softness, with depth. Not because she was trying to hold on to him, but because she was with him fully, freely, and with intention. And then he gets it. She wasn't trying to earn his love. She was offering hers freely, confidently. And once he realizes that, he also realizes the cost of taking it for granted, because being chosen by a woman who knows her worth isn't something that comes around every day. It's not something you stumble upon in a crowd. It's something you feel in your soul by the time. He understands that she was never chasing him. She was choosing him. It's usually too late, because a woman like that doesn't go backwards. She doesn't shrink herself to fit into places she's outgrown. She chooses with grace. She loves with courage, and when necessary, she leads with peace. And that's what he misses most. Not just her love, but the intention behind it. Emotional safety is something most people don't even realize they need until they lose it. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's not something you post about or parade around, but it's foundation of every truly meaningful connection. And when a woman knows how to offer emotional safety, not as a strategy, but as part of who she is, it becomes her quiet superpower. She is that kind of woman. She didn't just listen to respond. She listened to her presence, didn't pressure you to be perfect, invited you to be honest. Around her, you didn't feel the need to pretend, to posture, or to perform. You could breathe. You could admit fear without judgment. You could be vulnerable without fear of being used. And maybe at the time that just felt nice, comforting, and easy, but now in her absence, you realize it was everything she created. A space where your emotions weren't just tolerated, were welcomed. That kind of safety doesn't come from someone who needs control. It comes from someone who's done the inner work, who understands herself deeply enough to hold space for someone else's mess without absorbing it. She didn't demand explanations for every emotion. She made room for you to be human. That's rare, and that's why when she's gone, her absence is so loud. Because what she feels, understanding, you begin to notice that other people may give attention, but not safety. They might be around, but they don't see you. They might say the right words, but they don't carry the energy of someone who makes you feel unconditionally accepted. She did. She wasn't afraid of your broken parts, didn't flinch when you opened up. She didn't make you feel weak for feeling. And the reason she could hold you like that wasn't because she needed to fix you. It's because she respected your process. She trusted that you were figuring things out. And she didn't try to rush that journey. Instead, she died quietly, with strength, not with pressure, but with presence. And now without her, you feel it, the difference between someone who tries to win you versus someone who simply witnessed you. She wasn't playing a role. She was just being real. And her emotional safety wasn't some tactic. It was a reflection of her own inner peace. That's what made her powerful. And that's also what made her unforgettable. She didn't raise her voice to be heard. She didn't have to beg for your attention. Her energy spoke for itself. It calmed the storms without ever silencing your truth. It challenged your chaos without controlling your choices, and most of all, it allowed you to feel like you could come undone without falling apart. Now, you understand emotional safety is not about fixing someone, it's about holding space for their healing. About being able to sit with someone's truth, even when it's messy, confusing, or painful. And she did that with such grace, you may not have even realized how deeply it impacted you until now, because once you've experienced that kind of peace, noise will never satisfy you again. She was your safe place, not because she made everything easy, but because she made everything real. And now every fake smile, every shallow conversation, every moment of emotional disconnection reminds you of what you had and what you let go. And maybe that's the hardest part. Real safety doesn't demand attention. It earns trust. It builds slowly. And once it's gone, you realize it wasn't her love that made you miss her most. It was the way she loved, with depth, with softness, with a strength that didn't need to shout. That's the kind of love you don't just remember. The kind of love you feel long after it's gone. There's a difference between someone being around and someone being truly present, but even more powerful is someone who isn't just present. They're intentional. She was that kind of woman. She didn't show up out of routine or obligation. She showed up with purpose. Every word she spoke, every gesture she made, every moment she gave it all had weight, meaning, and direction. She didn't do anything halfway. She didn't offer her energy randomly if she was in your life. It was because she chose to be, and she chose to give with her whole heart. She didn't text just to kill time. She messaged you because she wanted to connect. She didn't ask how your day was just for small talk. She genuinely wanted to know. She paid attention to the little things, the way you avoided certain topics, the tone you used when you were hiding something, the silence between your words. And it wasn't because she was trying to control you. It was because she cared. She made effort look effortless. But the truth is, effort like that comes from deep intentionality, not convenience. When she was around, it was easy to take that kind of energy for granted because she didn't make a show out of it. She didn't need applause for her loyalty or praise for her consistency. Her love was quiet, steady, and purposeful. She knew that real connection doesn't need to shout it. It just needs to show up, and she did again and again. Now that she's gone, the difference is striking. You notice that people may be present in your life, but the presence feels light, almost hollow. It doesn't carry the same depth. Conversations feel more like transactions than the connections. People come and go, and it all starts to blur together because no one moves like she did. No one brings the kind of focus, attention, and thoughtfulness she brought into the room. She remembered things you forgot. You even said she made you feel like your thoughts mattered, like your presence had value, and most importantly, she made you feel seen, not for who you pretended to be, but for who you really were underneath it. All that's what intention does. It slows down, it tunes in, and it makes the person in front of you feel like they're the only one that matters in that moment. And now you realize being around someone isn't the same as being known by them. A lot of people can stand next to you, but very few will stand with you. She stood with you not because she had to, but because she chose to. Her presence was a decision. And when someone chooses to love you with intention, that love stays with you even after they leave. She was intentional in how she loved, how she communicated. She made you feel it wasn't performative, it was real, and real has a way of leaving marks that time doesn't erase. When she walked away, she didn't slam doors. She didn't burn bridges. She simply withdrew the energy she used to give so freely. And that silence said more than any goodbye ever could. It was your real has a way of leaving marks that time doesn't erase. When she walked away, she didn't slam doors. She didn't burn bridges. She simply withdrew the energy she used to give so freely. And that silence said more than any goodbye ever could. Now, when you scroll through old messages or think back to certain moments, you can feel it, that difference, the warmth in her words, the care in her presence, the way she showed up, not just when it was easy, but when it mattered most. And you start to understand that her power wasn't in her presence alone. It was in the intention behind it. And once you felt that kind of intentional love, you can't feel it. Everything else starts to feel temporary, surface level, replaceable, but she never was. She was intentional. And that made all the difference. There's a strength in a woman who knows how to give without losing herself. She loved fully, no doubt. She poured her heart into the connection, showed up consistent, supported your dreams and held space for your flaws. But what made her truly rare was that she did all of that without letting go of who she was. She gave, but not from emptiness. She gave from a full cup one. She worked hard to fill on her own. She didn't compromise her values to keep the peace. She didn't abandon her boundaries to make you feel more comfortable. She didn't trade her identity for the illusion of closeness. Every time she gave, it was a conscious choice, not a cry for validation. She knew the difference between love and self-sacrifice. She knew that being a good partner didn't mean becoming invisible. She never made herself small so you could feel big. She knew her worth and she carried it with quiet confidence. She didn't need to be everything you never asked her to, showed up as if your emotional safety mattered. She listened when you had no words. She encouraged you. When you doubted yourself, she stood by you. Even when she was unsure where the road was leading, but even in her softness, there was steel. Even in her giving, there was intention. She never forgot herself. That's the part you may not have noticed at first because she made it look so effortless. It's easy to miss the strength it takes to remain grounded in your identity while loving someone deeply. She never disappeared into the relationship. She was always her own person, independent, alive, growing, and her world didn't revolve around you. She had her passions, her voice, her peace. She invited you into her world. She never handed it over. And now that she's gone, you see the weight of that. You feel the presence of someone who gave not out of neediness, but out of wholeness. That kind of giving leaves an imprint. It doesn't just touch your life, it transforms it, because when someone gives without losing themselves, you're not just experiencing love, you're experiencing realness, integrity, depth. She knew that love without boundaries leads to resentment. Jen knew that overextending leads to burnout, and so she moved with balance. She gave you her time, but not at the cost of her peace. She shared her heart, but she didn't abandon her voice. She made room for you, but she didn't erase herself to keep you close. That's what made her unforgettable. She didn't need to be rescued. She didn't ask you to complete her. She came whole, and she loved from that place. That's not something you come across every day. That's not something you replace with convenience or attention. That kind of woman doesn't just offer love. She embodies it, and when she's no longer there, you don't just miss the things she did. You miss the presence. She carried the peace. She held the way. She made giving look like grace, not obligation. She gave you the kind of love that doesn't demand control or applause. She gave because it was who she was, but she never gave so much that she lost herself in the process. That's the kind of love that builds, not breaks, that nurtures, not drains, and that's why it still lingers in your memory. She was never trying to prove anything. She was just being true to herself. And somehow that was everything. Because when someone gives without losing themselves, they don't just show you what love looks like. They show you what real love feels like. And that's the kind you carry with you even long after they're gone. She didn't scream. She didn't slam doors. She didn't create chaos on her way out. She simply left with clarity, with grace, and with direction. No need for theatrics. No need to make a scene, because when a woman truly knows her worth, she doesn't need to beg to be seen, and she certainly doesn't need to create drama to make a point. She had already said what needed to be said more than once. She had tried to express what was missing, what was hurting, what needed attention. But after a while, even the most patient heart gets tired of repeating itself. So instead of yelling louder, instead of pushing for change, she began pulling her energy back. And when she finally walked away, it wasn't out of anger. It was all out of alignment. She realized she couldn't stay where she wasn't growing, where she wasn't heard, where she was willing to give her leaving. Wasn't sudden. It was a slow, silent process. A quiet untying of the knot she had once held tightly, and that's what makes it so powerful. It wasn't reactive, it was intentional. It came from reflection, not resentment, from wisdom, not wounds. You didn't notice it at first because nothing exploded. But slowly, the things she used to say with her words started showing in her absence. The calls she used to make, the way she checked in, the softness in her tone, the light in her eyes. One by one, those pieces began to fade, not because she stopped caring, but because she finally accepted that caring alone wasn't enough to hold the relationship together. And now, with time and distance, you understand the message her silence carried. She wasn't leaving to hurt you. She was leaving to honor herself. That kind of departure stings deeper than any angry outburst, because it shows she wasn't trying to punish you. She was trying to protect her peace. She left without drama because she had nothing to prove. She didn't need to make you feel small to feel strong. She didn't want revenge. She wanted clarity. She wanted mutual respect, emotional safety, and consistency. And when it became clear those things weren't being built together, She made the hardest decision a strong woman ever has to make. She let go with love. You see, it takes strength to fight for a relationship, but it takes wisdom to know when to stop fighting for something that keeps breaking you. She had the strength to stay to try to pour her energy into it, but she also had the wisdom to walk away when she realized she was the only one doing the building. And now in the quiet moments it hits you, her exit wasn't loud, but the silence she left behind is deafening. You start to feel the gap, not just of her presence, but of her intention, the way she showed up, the way she supported you, the way she brought clarity to your chaos. She wasn't just there physically, she was invested. And that's the hardest part to replace. You can find people to fill space, but someone who shows up with purpose, that's rare, left without drama, because she didn't need a performance. She needed peace. And while others might chase closure through conflict, she gave herself closure through clarity. She made a decision before bitterness could take root. And now you understand her silence wasn't weakness, it was strength. Her calm wasn't detachment, it was control. She didn't leave in pieces, she left whole because she didn't walk away to teach you a lesson. She walked away because she finally learned hers. The way she supported you, the way she brought clarity to your chaos. She wasn't just there physically, she was invested. And that's the hardest part to replace. You can find people to fill space, but someone who shows up with purpose, that's rare. She left without drama because she didn't need performance. She needed peace, and while others might chase closure through conflict, she gave herself closure through clarity. She made a decision before bitterness could take root. And now you understand her silence wasn't weakness, it was strength. Her calm wasn't detachment, it was control. She didn't leave in pieces. She left whole because she didn't walk away to teach you a lesson. She walked away because she finally learned hers.